How can a country go from being the murder capital of the world to the safest in the entire Western Hemisphere, even safer than the United States? Well, certainly not without any controversy.
The crackdown on gangs intensifies in El Salvador. Concerns that human rights are being violated.
This is the biggest prison in the world, designed to hold up to 40,000 inmates. It's a brand new high-security fortress. The inmates are under constant observation, inside and outside. Up to 100 prisoners live in cramped-up cells, with no privacy. There's no going out, no fresh air, and no visits. This prison is located in El Salvador. For decades, the country has been terrorized by so-called maras, competing street gangs. It was notoriously one of the world's most dangerous places. Its murder rate has long been the highest on the globe. Then, its people elected a new president. Nayib Bukele went to war against the country's gangs. His government imprisoned 2% of the country's adult population. Many here, never to see their families again, never to be released back into society. El Salvador has long been plagued by gang violence, a relentless scourge that left entire neighborhoods paralyzed by fear and despair.
Nosotros decíamos que habían tres caminos nada más para la ganga. Era cárcel, muerte y hospital.
For years, notorious groups like MS-13 and Barrio 18 operated with near impunity, creating a shadow government that dictated the daily lives of citizens.
Sabemos que somos gangsters, porque no hay nada fuera de la 18.
But in 2019, a seismic shift occurred. Nayib Bukele, a charismatic and controversial figure, assumed office as president of El Salvador.
Vamos a ir y vamos a atrapar a los delincuentes a donde quiera que estén, a donde quiera que se escondan.
Bukele came with bold promises and an unshakable resolve. He vowed to do what no leader before him had achieved: eradicate the gangs once and for all. Under his administration, mass arrests swept through the country, targeting anyone with even the faintest connection to gang activity. Entire communities saw their streets emptied of young men who were rounded up and detained. Alongside this crackdown came the creation of CICOT, the Centro de Confinamiento del Terrorismo, a prison unlike anything the world had ever seen. Touted as the largest prison in the Americas, CICOT wasn't just a facility. It was a fortress, a statement, and a weapon in Bukele's war against the gangs. Built to house up to 40,000 of the nation's most dangerous criminals, it was a place designed to break spirits and send a clear message. There is no escape, no mercy, and no return to the streets. For Bukele, this was more than a prison. It was the cornerstone of his vision for a safer, gang-free El Salvador. Inside the walls of CICOT, every detail seems meticulously crafted to crush the human spirit. The prison's design and operations leave no room for individuality or humanity. Inmates are stripped of their identities the moment they arrive, forced into identical uniforms that erase any sense of personal distinction. Their days are dictated by monotonous routines, with no allowances for personal expression or reprieve. The cells, bleak and unyielding, are overcrowded to an almost unimaginable degree. Dozens of prisoners are crammed into spaces meant for far fewer, creating an environment of constant suffocation and unrest. Personal space is non-existent, and the hum of tension fills the air, an ever-present reminder of the prison's oppressive control. Sunlight, a basic human necessity, is reduced to an occasional and fleeting luxury. For most inmates, days blur into nights under the dim glow of artificial lighting. The isolation from natural light only deepens the psychological toll, making every moment feel like an unending punishment. The atmosphere is heavy, not just with the weight of confinement, but with an unspoken sense of despair that permeates every corner of this fortress. CICOT operates with the precision of a military fortress, leaving no room for error or rebellion. Surveillance cameras are strategically placed to monitor every corner, ensuring that no movement goes unnoticed. Guards armed with high-caliber weapons patrol relentlessly, their presence a constant reminder of the unyielding authority within these walls. Their training and discipline leave no doubt that any attempt to resist or revolt would be swiftly and decisively crushed. Inmates are not merely serving time, they are completely cut off from the world outside. Communication with families or the faintest connection to life beyond the prison is non-existent, creating an overwhelming sense of isolation. Every aspect of their existence is controlled and monitored, from their movements to their limited interactions. Meals are sparse, with inmates receiving only the bare minimum to survive. Medical care is limited, and even basic needs are often ignored. Freedoms most take for granted, like talking to fellow prisoners, are strictly controlled. Every day inside CCOT serves as a constant reminder not only of their crimes, but also of the overwhelming power the state wields over their lives. Here, even the smallest aspects of daily life are dictated by the authorities, leaving inmates with no sense of autonomy or humanity. For many Salvadorans, CCOT symbolizes hope and a new beginning. Violent crime has dropped drastically, and neighborhoods that were once under the control of gangs are now peaceful and safer. Families can finally walk the streets without the constant fear that plagued them for years. The change is undeniable, and for many, CCOT is seen as a victory in the fight against crime. However, not everyone supports the methods employed. Critics argue that the tactics used, mass arrests, overcrowded prisons, and the harsh conditions inside CCOT violate human rights and could foster more resentment and violence in the long run. While the streets may be quieter, the question remains, at what cost to justice and dignity? Human rights organizations contend that the conditions inside CCOT violate basic human dignity. Reports of torture, severe overcrowding, and a lack of medical care have sparked widespread outrage. Critics argue that the prison is not about justice, but rather a spectacle, a harsh display of power meant to intimidate rather than rehabilitate. They warn that this approach could erode the very principles of human rights, as the prison's extreme conditions risk dehumanizing inmates and perpetuating a cycle of violence and abuse that undermines the rule of law. Yet, President Bukele remains unapologetic, firmly standing by his approach. To his supporters, the drastic measures taken are justified by the significant reduction in crime and the restoration of order. They believe the ends justify the means. However, to his critics, this represents a dangerous overreach of power, a step too far that could set a troubling precedent for other nations. They argue that such extreme tactics could embolden authoritarian regimes and lead to further erosion of human rights, both within El Salvador and globally. CCOT has attracted global attention, sparking debate around the world. Some countries view it as a model for tackling gang violence, believing its harsh methods could be the solution to their own security issues. Others, however, see it as a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and authoritarian tactics. The prison has become a symbol of El Salvador's drastic approach to restoring order, a double-edged sword that raises critical questions about justice, morality, and the appropriate role of the state in maintaining law and order. The United Nations and other global organizations have called for investigations into CCOT's conditions, emphasizing that justice must be tempered with humanity. They argue that while fighting crime is crucial, it should never come at the cost of basic human rights. However, for now, President Bukele's government remains defiant, pointing to the dramatic reduction in crime as undeniable proof of their success. For them, the results speak for themselves, and they are resolute in defending their controversial methods as necessary for the safety and stability of the nation. The story of CCOT is far from over. Will this fortress truly bring lasting peace to El Salvador, or will it ultimately lead to more problems? Can a nation erase decades of violence through sheer force? Or does this approach risk repeating the cycles of oppression and rebellion that have defined its history? These questions remain unanswered, and the future of El Salvador's fight against gangs hangs in the balance. El Salvador's fortress prison stands as both a symbol of hope and a stark warning. It represents the lengths to which a nation will go to reclaim its streets and restore order, but it also highlights the immense cost of such drastic measures. The world is watching closely as the story of CCOT continues to unfold, a story that demands to be told and understood, for its implications stretch far beyond the borders of El Salvador. While reading up on this topic, we found this quote in The Guardian: "Bukele is highly undemocratic, highly abusive, and highly popular. For some, it's hard to accept that these three things can coexist. Bukele jokingly called himself the world's coolest dictator on Twitter a few years back. Doesn't seem so funny now.